So I can still see a few people joining, but I think we can start with the webinar right now. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lars Steffen. I'm Director International at the ECO Association, and I welcome you to part 4 of the Top DNS Best Practice webinar series, recognizing good practice in the DNS towards positive data-driven policy discussions. And for this, we collaborate today with the DNS Research Federation, and our today's speakers are Emily Taylor, CEO and founder of the DNS Research Federation, and Lucien Taylor, he's the Chief Strategy Officer at the Oxford Information Labs. This is part 4 of the series. This means that we have already part 1, 2, and 3. So part 1 covered how to reduce abuse through quality. That was presented by Brian Symbolic from PIR and Theo Gertz from Real Time Register. Part 2 covered standards and frameworks for evidencing abuse online by Jeff Betzer from Clean DNS. And part 3, how to investigate online abuse with free tools, was presented from Theo Gertz from Real Time Register again. And if you are interested in those recordings, please follow the link that I put into the chat. That takes you to the topDNS website, where you have the archive of all webinars of the series. And of course, this part will also be added to the website shortly after the webinar. If you would like to learn more about the topDNS initiative, please follow the next link that I put to the chat. And before we get into substance, I would like to briefly take you through our housekeeping rules. So this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available after the meeting. You are muted throughout the webinar. If you would like to raise questions, please use the questions pod on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar dashboard. If you would like to submit your question verbally, please use the raise your hand functionality. We will unmute you. Please state your name and your affiliation. And after the webinar, you will receive a survey, a short survey where you can provide feedback if this webinar has been useful or not, and where you can also leave a few comments that we can learn and improve our content. If you would like to learn more about the topDNS initiative, please follow the link or the URL that you see here. And if you would like to know who's part of the initiative, you can see a few companies and also the members of the steering committee here. Just to let you know about the further dates, we will have a short break in this webinar series in October due to the ICANN 78 meeting in Hamburg, where ECO is one of the co-hosts. But right after the ICANN meeting, the next webinar that you can attend will be the ICANN 78 readout, where we'll provide a summary of the entire ICANN meeting. And in November, we will continue with the webinar series for topDNS, and we will inform you via social media, our website and newsletters, what will be on the agenda. And with this, I would like to hand over to our speakers today. And the first one will be Emily Taylor. Emily, the floor is yours.
Lars, thank you so much for the invitation to speak today, to join such a great webinar series. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you in Hamburg as well. I'm just going to share my screen. So the subject today is about recognizing good practice and positive data-driven conversations and discussions. So I'm going to talk about who we are, and I will then talk about very briefly talk about a project that we've been doing on measuring abuse rates across different TLDs, and with a particular emphasis on the EU ccTLDs. And then the majority of the time today will be led by Lucien, who will talk about the challenges of modeling a trust service. So first of all, I think, Lars, thank you very much for the introduction. I'll talk about a little bit about the DNS Research Federation and what we are. But I think I just wanted to highlight today that particularly Lucien's remarks will be taken from the perspective of also a small registrar, an ICANN accredited registrar that we co-own and run, and that gives us the, if you like, the industry perspective and some of the challenges faced by very small registrars such as ourselves. So I just wanted to make that clear. And for the DNS Research Federation is a UK not-for-profit. It was set up by us at Oxford Information Labs. We are incubating the DNS Research Federation as it gets up on its feet. Our mission is to advance the understanding of the domain name system's impact on cybersecurity, policy, and technical standards. And we do that primarily through education and research, improving access to data, and also engagement in technical standards. So you can find out more about us on our website at dnsrf.org, and I've just taken you here to our research homepage. So we have different zones for different research projects. I'm going to be taking you to our safest TLD league table, but you can see we're also engaged in a wide range of policy research. We have established an Internet Standards Observatory with the support of the Internet Society Foundation and the RIPE NCC. We've also been undertaking an extensive measurement exercise on RPKI adoption in the ARIN region, North American and Caribbean regions, with the support of ARIN. And then at the bottom of that page there, you can see a reference to blockchain domains. That's been a major scholarly paper written by our Georgia Osborne and Nathan Allen that's measuring the number of blockchain domains that have been emerging and assessing the governance gaps and risks relating to them, as well as looking at how they're being used. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the safest TLD league table, but also in the interests of time today, I am doing a very, very high level view of that. What we did was, with the backdrop of the coming into force of the NIS2 directive, and also reflecting on the impact that legislation such as GDPR has had on the availability of who is data, we wanted to, in a way, sort of turn the lens around, and that's part of the subject, the title of today's talk, to think about, why is it that the EU ccTLDs seem to have such astonishingly low rates of abuse, much, much lower than their market share. There's a lot in the paper, and you can download the full paper from our website. And just here on the screen, you can see on the right-hand side, we've got a league table, which actually doesn't only include the European ccTLDs, but all I think we've got 570 something TLDs there, and they're ranked according to their rates of abuse, which are normalized by the number of domains under management. So just a very high level flyby of the key findings of this study. We found that although the EU ccTLDs have a market share of about 15%, they only have on average a 3% rate of the overall market share, if you like, if there is a market of DNS abuse. We saw that many of those registries take proactive measures to improve data quality, and on this we relied very heavily on an excellent report done by colleagues at Centre who surveyed the different Centre members and understood from that what the different Centre members are doing. And the key message that came through was that many of the registries adopt multiple approaches to managing data quality. Of course, with the NIS2 directive and its reference to electronic identification systems and verification of user ID, that's been a big focus for the community. But what we found, and what's based on Centre's evidence, is that only 3 European ccTLDs at the time of the study have implemented EIDs, And yet across the board, we're seeing really low rates of abuse. The most common story is that there are multiple measures at play. And those proactive data checks don't seem to impede strong market performance. We're seeing that there is a very high market penetration on average for the European ccTLDs, and furthermore that the EU ccTLDs seem to be able to combine low cost and high quality. And these last two findings really surprised me, because coming from a ccTLD background myself, I worked for 10 years in Nominet from the late 90s and have been working in the ccTLD environment as a consultant for the last 10 or 15 years. The received wisdom that I've always had is that if you put in place checks and balances in this way, then you will somehow create friction and drive your customers away. What I'm pleased to say is that the ccTLDs don't seem to have this experience, and we could all debate at length why this is the case. But so I just wanted to draw your attention to this study, and with that I will stop sharing my screen and hand the floor to Lucian.
Hello, everybody. I'm just sharing the window. Right. Okay. So, I'm here to talk about a very practical project, because I work together with my development team at Oxford Information Labs, and we develop a lot of things in the DNS space, our own domain name registrar platform for our own domain name registrar, Netistrar, as well as legal systems and other DNS-based services that we've developed in the past. And I've been challenged with modeling a trust service and basically understanding the challenges of what it would take to provide a free API for domain name registrars to use as a trust service. And at Oxford Information Labs, we tend to understand things by building them. So just introduction today, an overview of what we're doing. I'm going to talk about what we have been building, the problems that we're seeking to address, learning from other industries, understanding the challenges for ourselves, modeling a trust service and actually what that takes, and strategic assets and capabilities, and sort of some gap analysis there and where we need to go next. And trust security is a team sport, and so at the end of that we're talking about building a community and what we're doing with the DNS Research Federation to sort of build those communities. I would say at the outset that this is a kind of straw man technical challenge for us. We're not competing with other projects out there. There are many other initiatives that try and address this thing of trust in the domain name space, but we've built a kind of end-to-end workflow looking specifically at the technical challenge of building a trust rating for domain name registrars. So what have we been building? Well, we've been building a trust rating, a simple trust rating that recognizes good practice and rewards things rather than punishes things around the domain name system. This is not a rating. We're not rating registrars, we're rating domain names. So more as this unfolds. Basically, we're looking at a simple trust rating for domain names. It's tailored towards registrars and their particular needs. As I said, we have our own domain name registrar, which is Netistrar. It's a small domain name registrar. Some people would say we manage a lot of domains. We manage up to 50,000 domain names. So in a way, there's no profit in it. And it's a big challenge for us to get the security right. And I'll talk about that as this unfolds. This rating is to reassure the consumers and the businesses who are purchasing domain names. And it is the aim is to develop a free-to-use REST API. So what problems are we seeking to address? For us, there is no profit in domain names. The profit comes through in added value only. Most of our customers are resellers. They take a large slice of the pie, and as registrars, we're looking at about a typical profit on that, or margin rather, is 50 cents a domain name. Set against that, abuse, misuse. I'm not going to get into the arguments about what they're called here, but it's on the rise. That's our view. There are kind of too many armies. There are too many competing projects, so we don't know what to hook into. Registries have initiatives, other registrars have their own initiatives, and the regulators are now having their initiatives. And so we don't kind of know where to put our efforts. Our premise is that basic security services should be free, and they're very expensive. So at the moment, basic security around domain name management is in the land of the rich, in the land of the big players. And we think that if we can build an effective security system for a small registrar, that will help everybody. I always say the race to the bottom in the domain name industry came first. If you look at the airline industry, which used to be gentlemen in balloons and airships and learning and having their crashes in private and learning how to be safe. And then the Ryanairs and the EasyJets came at the end of it once we'd sorted all the security out. Whereas in the domain name industry, the race to the bottom came first. All the margins were taken away from the market, and we're trying to patch in security now. But the problem we're faced with is poor incident management, reduced time to detect, time to mitigate, and we need to increase the time between failure. Going back to my sort of security work, that's not really happening. More on that in a minute. So and finally, we've got a lot of measures. We're receiving a lot of information about the issues out there, but there's no sort of feedback loop. There's no way to sort of measure the measures to automatically give responses on the fidelity of the feed. So we're looking at systems that can tackle that as well. So in terms of incident management, there is well, I'll get back to that point in a minute. First of all, we're still on this list of problems that we're seeking to address. There is a risk, we believe, of doing nothing. Legislation is ramping up. I see that ECO are doing a workshop on Article 28 of the NIS2 directive. Fundamental to that is the excitement around know your customer. For a domain name registrar, that's quite a big issue and quite a big challenge. Generally, industry design solutions tend to work better than legislation-led solutions. That's in my humble opinion. Disputes and investigations are not only expensive, but they're time consuming. And as we said, on average of 50 cents a domain name on the margin, disputes also drive you into losses. I think there's a lack of electronic services. We're working, the ones we're used to, EPP, our DAP now, who is electronic services. Where are the security electronic services in our industry? Finally, if we're going to come together and develop these things, there is an opportunity for standards here. And at the DNS Research Federation, we're very into standards because it reduces the cost of interoperability and security systems for everyone. If you think about the disaster of cookie notices as a response to GDPR, where there are no standards across the browser manufacturers, and we've kind of ended up in a situation where even more cookies are being collected, and our privacy is even more damaged. So going back to this, these sort of ways of escalating issues and the feedback loop and actually tackling this and lack of electronic services, I'm going to give you here an example of an email that was sent to our CEO of our domain name registrar, Netistrar, in response to what we believe was a false positive notification from a feed provider that they use. It basically says, thank you for your email. If you suspect that certain domains that they've flagged up that we need to give attention to are false positives and warrant a review, please don't hesitate to contact us. We can certainly escalate the domains in question. However, the final decision to remove a domain name from any feed providers lists rests with them. So although we can request they review any escalations, we aren't ultimately in control of the domain's removal. Now, I'm not here to name and shame any particular registry. All I want to say is I can't really hear chit chat on this, so I would have asked you at this point what any of you feel is wrong with this in terms of security escalation. I'll provide some answers for you if you're not saying them in your own head. One is that it's an email. If you're in a phishing situation or a security emergency situation, writing to people by email is just the way it is at the moment, filling in forms. A lot of the feeds have sort of ways of sort of querying things that are quite heterogeneous. They're sort of different. There's no standards here. And everything's pretty ad hoc. Here, though, we're using a registry that's using a feed as a service, and they're very disconnected. They're once removed from the curation of the domain names on it. This is slow, expensive, and manual. Pardon me. Learning from other industries. If we think about the travel industry, consumers can rely upon services like ABTA and Atoll, which provide them with cash if those industries go bust or if things are affected. In the domain name industry, there's no sort of protection in that way for consumers. There's no sort of group protection or insurance. If we look at regulation, the FCSC in the UK, in the USA, they've got the FDIC. In Germany, you've got the DSGV and a number of others, BVR, VOB, BDB. The consumer is protected by regulation. And what we can learn from that is that non-compliant members are described as failures under this and are named and shamed on those in the FCSC site. If we think about artwork, there is the Wildenstein Institute, which maintains the quality catalogue raisonné, and the thing which they regard themselves as the supreme arbiter of the genuine and the fake. So if you don't know what you're buying, if you're into buying artwork, you can go to this organization, look up the artwork, and if they're listing it and they're saying this is good, then you know you're onto a safe bet. The thing we learn from that is that academia is playing a big part in that, and there's a panel of academic experts who decide that and evaluate each piece of art. Even if it was painted by Monet, if they don't say it is, it doesn't exist as far as they're concerned. I'm very interested in what's happening in the crypto UK markets. They've formed a body of people who are trying to deal with the issues the challenges that they're facing through self-regulation. They now have 155 plus members and various working groups, and they've come together to self-regulate, to avoid the regulator. And what they say is happening when you talk to them is that the group are working together and they're not letting the bad guys transfer between each other. And they're actually pushing the bad guys towards exchanges that are now recognized as the bad exchanges. And that's helped in two ways. It's sort of helped keep their members clean and push all the bad stuff away. They're not cannibalizing each other's markets. so they feel pretty protected. But also the regulators and the law enforcement are able to look at the bad guys and concentrate all their resources on those areas. So it's win-win for them. Moving on to understanding the challenges. Well, the challenges in this whole area are false positives. A lot of registrars feel that a lot of the notifications they're getting are false, and it's making them have to run around and consume resources. There are competing notification services. I personally am aware of notifications by email. I had one the other month from the French police saying, we've got a domain name that we don't like, we need you to look at it. You know, we have to get that email translated. We also have to get lawyers involved, and there's no sort of standard approach. One registrar said they get thousands of abuse reports from one service just before ICANN meetings. So I think whatever this system is going to have to import and handle external reports and provide workflow opportunities to fulfill registrars' requirements to respond and bring all of this sort of mush together. I also, beyond actually just the trust rating itself, we think there are opportunities to build workflows around cases, automatic diversion to other initiatives out there. I think of the DNS Abuse Institute, who have a fantastic system. Can you remind me, Emily, of a NetBeacon, which is helping to sort of focus and get the abuse referrals into the right places, automatic referral, cataloging and rejection. And also anything that is really designed at scale has to deal with the bad reporter, inertia and inaccurate data, or people who are playing but not compliant. Another big challenge, and we saw it from Crypto UK, is that membership registrars will lose customers. So we're looking at a system where all the members will play and we drive the bad actors away from all the members. We don't just eat up each other's markets, and how to then attract the good customers and how to put more money into the hands of the compliant registrars. Finally, and I say this as a techie time and time again, not everything fits into an algorithm. And we understand there will always be edge cases, interesting problems, white lists and blacklists. Some people think that those that offer URLs, secondary level websites are benign. They describe them as benign domain names. Others would describe them as super spreaders. So, you know, things like that are very sensitive and they need a way of handling them. So moving on to our thoughts about modeling a trust service. What are the elements that really make this happen? The first is a simple trust rating. I think it's got to be simple. It's got to be something that consumers will eventually learn to understand. And part of the mission and the challenge is to reward best practice. So we've come up with a trust rating model that rates a domain name that's freshly born as an A-rated domain name. If it folds in some of the things that are coming through from legislation, such as Know Your Customer, there's an opportunity that is in the control of the registrar to automatically have that promoted to an A-star trusted rating, recognizing factors like Know Your Customer, SSL certificates, and good quality records, and an agreement to a responsiveness that is shared and understood. B-rated is rather nebulous, but that's basically not such a good score, and a lot of things can fit into that. It can be a domain name that has a historic record or issue, something that's not really big, but it needs looking at. And finally, C rating is a warning rating. It's something that we would recommend at Netistral that no consumer or business would touch. A community of registrars. I mean, Netistral provides its domain name registration platform to a number of other registrars. If I've got 3 registrars, I've got a community, and we can all agree to work together to try and push the bad stuff away. A domain name registration platform, preferably one that supports a trust rating. Netistral's domain name registration platform, which is available for other people to use, will support a trust rating. But the trust rating does not need a domain name registration platform to operate. It can happen through its API, a REST API, on any part of the domain name workflow. You can even have a trust rating sort of checker in some sort of offline form. So it doesn't. We have an ambition to weave a trust rating into the full life cycle of domain name pre-purchase and management, but others may just want it to be a sort of offline thing that you can check from time to time. And this is the big one. I mean, there's a number of fantastic initiatives like Global Cyber Alliance and others who are building high quality domain trust services. At Netistral, we want to just bring as much together as possible and let the data speak for itself. So the policy making is coming from the data. We want to know the warts and all. We don't really want one big money shot sort of measure. We actually want something that brings together all the data in a way that is operated by multi-stakeholder. If this service can be provided by others or managed by others, all well and good. But at this stage, we're looking at the DNS Research Federation to provide that rich mixture of feeds. An algorithm committee. We need a body of multi-stakeholders who are not just from the domain name industry, but from public safety and academia. We have a number of people and partnerships that we're working with who can provide that valuable input to help us tune this algorithm. An algorithm that is manageable and pluggable, that can respond to a myriad of feeds and data, and also can maintain things like blacklists and whitelists and respond to those according to policies and thresholds. We need that. Finally, a free API which provides trust ratings for the full life cycle of a domain name, both pre-purchase and through the actual post-purchase management cycle of a domain name. So here we have an example from our system, our beta system, of an A-rated domain name that is available to purchase. When people dig into the information about why that is rated A, it's because it's a new domain. It doesn't appear on any bad lists. If the registrant was to purchase that domain name, it would all automatically be promoted to an A-star rated, because that particular registrant is known to us through a Know Your Customer system. The role of trusted reporter is important, because one thing we need in this whole setup is a feedback loop, and which is kind of measuring the measures, checking the fidelity of the information that's coming to the registrar and the registrant, and providing feedback through the same API as to the validity of those reports. Another important factor is Know Your Customer. Know Your Customer is an initiative that's coming from the legislator. We know the European Commission's very excited about this. The UK is very excited about this. essentially, this is putting the onus into the hands of domain name managements to really know their customer, to verify their identity, to verify their address details and their contact information, and verify it properly, not just a box tick, and to mean it. Obviously, from a registrar's point of view, the last thing we want to do is get into the game of storing passports and government IDs and address details. It's also an expensive process. I think there is an opportunity for our industry here. Excuse me. Know your customer is a service that could be purchased through a number of third-party providers. And if we, through the DNS Research Federation, work with a number of Know Your Customer electronic providers and certify them, that then becomes a token system. And from the registrar's point of view, it's simply a token that we need for every contact detail and contact transfer to reassure ourselves that if it came to it, those customers would be known to us. And I think there's an opportunity as an industry to own or develop or work with some know your customer electronic service providers and gain ourselves a big discount on the margins out there. We're looking at the moment at margins of costs of 20 cents per transaction, which off our 50 cents per year per domain name is really eating into it. So we think there are opportunities to really rationalize this area. Just stepping through in this sort of project, the strategic assets and capabilities that we have at the moment. We have a trust rating. We have our own domain name registration platform. We have a federation with 70 plus data feeds. We have an algorithm and we have a free API. What we're focusing on next is building a community of registrars and finally putting together an algorithm committee. When we say that, it sounds like something from Darth Vader, but it's more like a body of multi-stakeholder advisors who can advise us on the maths. So we've got quite a lot of clever mathematicians in our organization who really are super bright at this, but also to advise us on the softer sides, the policy decisions and things like that. Finally, in building a community, we have actually, Emily, I wouldn't mind. I've got a bit of a throat. If you wouldn't mind just taking over the building the community bit, I'll keep this slide up because you're doing a lot of work in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucian. So, building a community, obviously, in any distributed landscape, success or failure is going to be determined by more than one actor. And so our approach with the DNS Research Federation and with this concept is to work with the community. It is something that is intended for the small registrar as a practical toolkit that is free to implement and use. We think it should be of interest, but we don't know everything. And there will be lots and lots of different views on what should be done. Really part of our role here today in speaking to you as the eco community is to gauge your interest in it and to invite you to get involved in it, because it will be and also learning from our general approach with the DNS Research Federation. All of these things, we're going to make forward progress if we step out of our polarized, entrenched positions from our different stakeholder group and reach across the aisle, if you will, to the different stakeholders who also have a role to play. Lucian mentioned the academic community, in terms of training and refining algorithms of understanding, how to do that exception handling, those communities will be extremely have an extremely important role to play. But so too also do public safety. But the industry itself, the registries and registrars who have got that operational experience, who understand the whole business rather than the slice of it that is tied up with handling abuse, and also it's about spreading the word through our respective multi-stakeholder environments, and there's a few acronyms stuck there at the bottom. So next slide, please. That's it. So thank you very much for listening. We're really delighted to take any questions or comments from you. I know that there was a lot of information there. You might want to just process it quietly, but if you do have any immediate questions or comments, we'd be very, very pleased to hear.
So first of all, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Lucien, for this very interesting overview of your current work. I've just put in the chat, so to the audience, please feel free to ask questions. So please put them in the questions part, or please raise your hand. As long as I don't see any questions yet, let me start with my first question. So you described an ecosystem of trust services with different elements. And as you have also already mentioned by yourself, for some elements of this ecosystem, there are already services in place. So do you plan to, in the design of the ecosystem, that there are APIs or other touch points for already existing players and services on the market to be part of the ecosystem and to be connected to this ecosystem?
Yeah, I can have a first go at that, Lars. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Look, we're all too old and we've got too little time to try to reinvent the wheel or try to do absolutely everything ourselves. It's pointless. As Lucien said in his remarks, security is a team sport, and it relies on people from right across all of the different communities. There are some fantastic initiatives out there, and our approach is one of collegiality and collaboration. So when we're really not kind of coming into this with an angle of like, oh yes, we'll launch this tool and then we'll somehow take over the world. It's actually about trying to leverage the goodwill out there to provide, to place in the hands of people and organizations with low levels of resources, like the smaller registrars, new market entry, with what we believe they should have, which is accurate and free to use and easy implementable tools. So we don't see anything exactly like this, otherwise we wouldn't be proposing it. But clearly there are lots and lots of different components out there which could definitely strengthen and contribute to this service. And Lars, if you do know of anything identical to it, please let us know. So the approach is one of collaboration. The DNS is the ultimate distributed system. Improving quality, raising all boats within the DNS is not something that can be done with the flip of a switch, unfortunately. It does require collaboration. It requires reaching across into those different stakeholder groups that we highlighted. Lucien, I'm not sure if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, I would just like to say as well, this is a very rational, very techy, low-level API for registrars. Pardon me. It doesn't tell you much more than the trust rating for free. Beyond that, we are not seeking to capture the feed provider market. We work with many feed providers, and we're not trying to eat up or replace their services. So there will be some cost recovery services, basically reselling, the Federation reselling some feed services on a cost recovery basis, where people want more intelligence about what's happening. The thing that we're aiming to develop that is new I think is the feedback loop, the sort of feeds about feeds. And a number of people are saying some of the feeds are poor, some of the feeds are excellent, some of the feeds are really curated, and some of the feeds leave domains on there for generations even after deregistration. We want to get data back into the system about that.
Okay, thank you very much. I can only encourage the audience to ask questions if there are any, because I think this is really an interesting approach. And as you've also said, and we are definitely on the same page on that. This entire discussion and issue is about collaboration, and this is also why we have this webinar together with both organizations here. But you have also said that industry-driven solutions are usually better than regulation. What do you think that the industry could and should come up with on the long run to avoid further regulation? Because from my personal feeling, when we talk to regulators, there's still an appetite to do more. So this is my question to you. What can we as an industry still do better on the long run to address this?
Yeah, Lars, I think you've said it exactly right. You know, for a long time, the DNS environment has actually stayed under the radar, if you like, to regulators, and has had quite a good run of, you know, self-regulation, multi-stakeholder international regulation, so on, but doing its own thing. But I agree with you. I think those days are well and truly over. We see that with the NIS2 directive. And, you know, part of this is, look, the pendulum will swing, you know, from regulation to deregulation, and that is part of the policy cycle, isn't it? But we believe that so what advantages do industry created solutions have? First of all, if they work well, if they have uptake, then they can apply internationally. You know, one of the things that we're experiencing as a sector with the WHO is actually felt across all sectors where there's a need to exchange data, and that is the friction that has been created or contributed to in part by conflicting or uneven regulatory burdens. And so as different states bring forward regulation at the national or even regional level, even if they make it with extraterritorial effect, one is inevitably going to find that there are conflicts of laws, that there is a difference in the way that different stakeholders interpret them. So actually getting ahead of that, getting onto the front foot in a positive way and say, look, we as good faith actors in this sector want to do something to improve things. We hear you. You know, we may not agree about exactly how to do the terminology or exactly how we define what the issues are, but we do accept that there's more that could be done. So we understand our industry and we know what tools might well work. And I think that those things, whether I'm sitting in the waves commanding them to go back, I don't know. I don't think, you know, once regulators have got an appetite, and there's a, you know, I don't know if you saw Centre's update today on EU regulations, you know, just in the last few months, and it goes on for pages and pages and pages. There is an appetite for regulators now to get into this sector, and on one level, why not? Because it's incredibly important to our everyday life, and there are things that are going wrong. But I still feel that we as industry, as non regulators, public sector, we should be striving to improve services. And this I'm speaking, you know, as people involved in the industry, not on behalf of the DNS Research Federation, in that view.
Thank you. As I don't see any further hands or questions. Oh, I
think
see
Audrey got her hand up.
there is one question. So can we give the floor to
Hello, I hope
Tina
you can hear
Osborne?
me.
Yes, we can hear you
You
loud and
can.
clear.
Brilliant, brilliant. Great. Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I was just wondering, how is everyone as a community can contribute to this? What can we do to join the community?
Thank you very much. Lucian, do you want to go?
Yes. At the moment, I don't want to be too shiny about this because I don't want to be disrespectful to a number of huge initiatives that are out there. I think the most important thing is that the industry needs to be seen to be coming together. This isn't a kind of thing where the top players at the RRSG in ICANN sort of figure out what they want to do. This is a way of free services at a low level for the little guys, and able to show that a lot of people can come together. They know the rules and they can get involved with the view of saving costs in terms of security management and make profits by being on the side of the good guys as far as the regulator is concerned. And hopefully that will see that off, that will satisfy them, whilst also embracing big new challenges such as know your customer, which are there. Getting involved at this time, I've talked about the 3 entities that are doing this, but we don't want to necessarily own this. We want to talk to people about this. We want to talk about the challenges we've had of developing an electronic service, which we will just use on our own if nobody else is interested, because we do need this sort of summary service for our consumers. But we're going to go to Hamburg. We're going to be demonstrating these things. If you're too shy to ask a question now, please sidle up to our stand at ICANN, and we'd love to talk to you, share your worries. We want to hear the thing. We want to build a community by having a community, not just by asking people to go to a forum. So let's keep talking to each other. And if this isn't the right thing, and I think it's quite a good thing for us at this moment in time, a small registrar that just needs some to show that it cares in these areas, please talk to me about what else is out there that we can use. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I can only echo this. I consider this to be an invitation to the community to reach out to you, and also to other initiatives in the industry to collaborate and to work together on this. And I can only speak on behalf of the topDNS initiative. We will definitely follow up on this with you, and we will also take the opportunity to talk to you in Hamburg at the ICANN meeting. And I can only recommend everybody in the room to do the same, because only if we talk to each other we can learn from each other and make achievements as an industry and as a community. And therefore, because I don't see any further questions, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us, and your ideas and your thoughts. With this, I would like to thank the audience and everybody in the room for your participation. And we are looking forward to see all of you in person in Hamburg at the next ICANN meeting. I've shared the link to Lucian and Emily in the chat. So if you would like to reach out to them directly, please follow the link to the website, where you can find their contact information. If you would like to get in touch with us, I think you know where to go to. And with this, I would like to thank everybody, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars.